Europe never really had free speech in an absolutist fashion like the Americans do. Yet I never expected to get to see in my lifetime situations in Europe that far outpaced the 1980s Stasi era or indeed the Soviet Union era. There, I said it. One was freer to speak in 1987 Soviet Union or 1985 East Germany than one is now. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. The more I think of this, the more I find it inevitable to conclude that vast swaths of the western half of Europe have looked at how we used to do things back in communism and concluded that they can do it better, and then proceeded to implement just that. How else should it be characterized, the state of affairs, when citizens' houses are being raided by the police for disagreeing with the state? 3 stories for you. Story number 1, The Verge, July 13. German police raid homes over Facebook hate speech. Police in Germany carried out house raids across the nation on Wednesday, targeting people accused of posting hateful content on social media, and in a press release, the country's federal police agency, Bundeskriminalamt, said that the homes of around 60 people were searched on Wednesday and that most of the suspects were accused of posting anti-Semitic, xenophobic and other extremist messages. The operation was carried out across 14 provinces involving 25 police departments, and around 40 legal investigations have been opened. This marks the first time that police have carried out nationwide raids over hateful content posted online, the BKA said. Germany has seen the recent surge in online hate speech, fueled in part by the ongoing refugee crisis. A survey released by the Pew Research Center this week showed that 6 in 10 Germans link refugees to an increase in terrorism and that the influx will harm the German economy. In response, German authorities have sought to crack down on hate speech on Facebook, Twitter, and other online platforms. Now, mind you, this is not the first nor the last, and I can assure you it will not be the last time when the police raids private homes for daring to have uttered politically incorrect speech. Now, for instance, see this video or even this video. We also know that this is not the first time, because regular next-door people have already been criminally convicted for politically incorrect speech in private. Here, story number 2, Breitbart, July 8. Married couple sentenced for migrant-critical Facebook group. A German couple were taken to court and sentenced after they created a Facebook group that criticized migrants and the government's mass immigration policy. The couple, who live in the German town of Wirkirchen, stood accused of incited hatred towards migrants via the Facebook group that the pair had created, called the Anti-Refugee Movement. The group is said by the court to have been a clear incitement against migrants, and as a result, both 27-year-old Peter M. and his 26-year-old wife Melanie M. were found guilty of hate speech, Merkel reports. The statements on the Facebook group did not seem to contain anything overtly nationalistic or Nazi-inspired, but rather expressed deep concern about the situation in Germany relating to mass immigration. According to the court, the page, which has been taken down, in its first post stated, quote, "The war and economic refugees are flooding our country. They bring terror, fear and sorrow. They rape our women and put our children at risk," end quote, which, along with the German flag as the group's profile photo, was enough to bring the couple to court for hate speech. The group amassed around 900 followers in the 2 months that it was active. The beginning of the end for the group happened when a user reported the page to Facebook, who have been upfront about cooperating with the German government in censoring speech they deem as critical of migrants. The Facebook user who reported the page took a further step and reported it to their local police station in Lübeck, whereupon police were able to ascertain that the administrator of the page lived in Wirkirchen and handed the investigation over to that local police. At the trial, Peter M. defended his remarks online and said, "One cannot even express a critical opinion of refugees without getting labeled as a Nazi. I wanted to create a discussion forum where you can speak your mind about refugees," close quote. The judge in the case was unforgiving in his verdict on the site, saying that, quote, "The description of the group is a series of generalizations with a clear right-wing background." After sentencing Peter M. to a 9-month suspended prison sentence and his wife to a fine of 1,200 euros, the judge said, "I hope you understand the seriousness of the situation. If you sit in front of me again, you will end up in jail." So, are we clear? Advocating for the cleansing of white people, which is what Bundestag members of the far left, the Die Linke Party, actually do on broadcast TV.
Dann gibt es ja noch was. Jedes Jahr sterben mehr Deutsche als geboren werden. Das liegt zum Glück daran, dass die Nazis sich auch nicht besonders vervielfältigen. Und schon deshalb sind wir auf Zuwanderer aus anderen Ländern angewiesen. Bis zum 6. Juni. Tschüss.
That's fine. But anything with a, quote, "clear right-wing background" is worthy of criminal charges and sentencing. And then you're wondering why you're bloody surprised that Pegida has fans. And I also like this framing that is so bloody typical of communist regimes that the judge put. "I hope you understand the seriousness of the situation. If you sit in front of me again, you will end up in jail." Oh, get knotted, you communist turd. That's how they used to frame things here back in the 80s when you would be in one of those star chamber type of hearings for plotting against the socialist order. But there is one difference though. By late 1980s, the commies in here were fully aware that what they were doing was wrong, or at least deeply misplaced. But they went along with it anyway because their salaries depended on it. And of course because they didn't really care that much, but at least they knew it. As for the apparatchiks, the leaders were still committed to their bollocks most of the time. I mean, Honecker and Ceausescu surely did believe in their crap right till the very end. But these modern commies, these apparatchiks, are, however, fully convinced that the terror they inflict upon the populace is really for the greater good. And as much as of a cliché as it may be, the C.S. Lewis quote that of all the tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive, stands true today as much as it stood over 50 years ago when he said it. This judge hands out prison sentences for people talking about their communities on Facebook with the full approval of his conscience. I mean, in the United States, they had to introduce mandatory minimums to override the common sense routinely exercised by judges. Seems that that's not necessary in Germany. Story number 3. The Daily Mail, July 17. A boy of 3 is quizzed by police for racism as number of children accused of hate crimes soars. Here we go again. Quote, "More than 100 children have been reported for hate crimes over the past year, with those as young as 3 being investigated by police." Figures obtained from 37 of 43 police forces in England and Wales show that 138 incidents of racial or religious abuse by those under the age of 10 were reported last year, almost double the number of those reported in 2011. Examples of hate crimes being reported included both verbal and physical abuse. A 9-year-old from Manchester who allegedly told a classmate, "My dad told me not to sit next to Jews," and an 8-year-old from Humberside accused of telling someone to go back to Poland are among those being investigated according to the Mirror. The 3-year-old, who is also from Manchester, reportedly caused harassment, alarm, or distress to his victim. Many of those being investigated are over racial or religious assault or slurs, both in and outside the classroom, but there are also incidents of arson and other more serious crimes. Assistant Chief Constable Mark Hamilton, NPCC lead for hate crime, told Mail Online, "Children under 10 are below the age of criminal responsibility. They cannot be prosecuted for any offense. Police can take report of any hate incident, but in cases involving children under 10, police will not take any criminal action against the child. Now, here's an interesting aspect. If a 16-year-old has sex with his 15-year-old girlfriend, something which happens wildly every day, everywhere in the world, mind you, the British law thinks that the 16-year-old is guilty of statutory rape. Now, thank goodness that kind of retardation is not wildly spread in Europe. But anyway, so a 15-year-old is incapable of consenting to sexual activity, according to the British law, even with someone in his or her age group. But that same 15-year-old is suddenly an adult, prosecutable for hate crimes, if he or she says, "I don't want to stand next to Jews." And to make the legal schizophrenia complete, even 3-year-olds can be questioned by the police for, let me read this again, causing, quote, harassment, alarm, or distress. You see, this is what happens when you take the worship of the law to extreme levels, which is what the Brits and the Germans have been doing for ages. You lose sight of common sense and you end up with ridiculous situations like these. Now look, nobody is saying that the police shouldn't look into situations when individuals, even 8-year-old individuals, come wielding knives in schools and threaten the safety of others around them. But I am saying that it is fundamentally schizophrenic to have the police involved because a 9-year-old said at school, "My dad told me not to stay next to Jews," or whatever the allegation is there. You know, back in my days, if one were to say such thing, the response from other colleagues would have been swift and brutal. Usually along the sides of, "Yeah mate, we're all fully aware of how idiotic your father is, no need for daily reminders," and that's where the incident would have ended. No police, no involvement from teachers, no nothing. But then again, I already explained that most of my childhood would be illegal now because having any sort of grit is basically illegal, including and especially for children, and character development amongst peers is slowly being abolished by diktats and policies. And, you know, the grit and the character development amongst peers is abolished and to be replaced with what? With bored bureaucrats or overzealous police officers who stockpile files on every individual? How's that different from the Stasi era? No, serious question. Now here's the thing. Such policies are not just bad in and of themselves, considering how they harm the direct victims. They're bad because of their chilling effect. Now, will the next generation be even capable of thinking freely when their entire childhoods has been riddled with insane politics, schizophrenic policies, and police knocking on the door of the classroom every time another kid was making an un-PC comment? Will the next generation even be capable of that? Highly doubtful. Raising children in an environment full of cameras, full of police, and full of rules that simply don't make any sense for an adult, let alone for a child, is toxic. And everyone will pay the price for this. And it is going to happen very soon, and actually much sooner than many dare to even think about right now. I mean, look at your average 16-year-old in Europe, especially Western Europe. Do you see in them the next Churchill? Or the next John Paul II, or heck, even the next Solzhenitsyn? And the current 16-year-olds still have caught some doses of sanity. But think about it 15 years from now, when those that are 3-year-olds now and are being prosecuted for hate crimes will turn 18. How do you think they'll tend to view the world? Will they adhere to traditional constrained schools of thought, or rather be full-blown social justice warriors? I know what my money is when it comes to the future, and it's not on Western Europe. Thank you for watching.